It's our way of giving back to the global communities that helped make us successful. Whole Foods Market uses a portion of its profits to give back to the communities that helped make it successful. So Whole Foods sources product from about 91 different countries around the world. It's Whole Planet's mission to be in as many of those countries as we possibly can. There are a few due to political instability that we probably will never be in, but it's our intent to be in as many of those as we possibly can. We don't write the loans. These are some products that we get from around the world. We get onions from Peru, we get tea from Thailand. We don't write these loans to the producers of our products, but they've already got livelihoods. We use these producers to anchor us in a country and then seek out the pockets of the poorest of the poor to open lending centers to help raise the quality of life in the whole community. So the communities that we target are typically a family of 6 getting by on less than $2 a day. If anyone can fit that inside their head, I'm amazed, because it's beyond my ability. In Haiti, 50% of the population there is getting by on, a family of 4 getting by on less than $1 a day. You know, this abject poverty is actually more specifically multi-generational abject poverty. These people didn't wake up yesterday in poverty. They were born into it. Their parents were born into it. Their grandparents were born into it. It's a very, very hard cycle to break without some type of outside intervention. Well, microfinance is one of those outside interventions that allows people to lift themselves up in small ways out of poverty. Nobody gets wealthy from microfinance, but they are able to make incremental improvements in their quality of life. It's an extension of our core values, Whole Foods Market's core values of caring for our communities and our environment. I like to think it's an extension of our DNA, in that we have very explicit relationships with our stakeholders. This is Mohammed Yunus, the inventor of microfinance. 30 years ago, he conceived this idea of an alternative banking system designed to target the world's poorest of the poor. People who were not on anybody's radar in terms of being able to lend money to. He installed some very specific business processes, methodology, that to this day are still in place, and they contribute to a pretty phenomenal repayment loan on these loans. Does anyone know what that repayment rate is?
97%.
98%, that's right. That's right. What do you think the Western banking industry's threshold for success with repayment rate is? 70%. Yeah, 70%. So you've got borrowers in the developing world with very little work history, no credit history, paying it back at 28% higher than basically people with collateral, work history, and credit history. Yes?
Is there interest on these loans?
Yes, there is. And we'll get to that. Interest plays a very, very important part in this whole chain of events. And if I don't bring it back up, ask me before we finish. So one of the methodologies, one of the bases of this Grameen philosophy is you start with small amounts. Small amounts means primarily home-based businesses, because you're not going to open a big factory or a store. Women being the primary caregivers around the world make them the natural target for these loans, because they're home taking care of children. They can do their job at home at the same time watch their children. So 92% of our borrowers are women around the world. We don't set out not to lend to men, but when you look around the world at the class of people who has the most difficult time accessing capital, it's the developing world, it's rural communities, and it's women inside those communities. So a quick timeline, whoops, got an error there. Quick timeline, I won't go through it in detail, but we started lending in 2006. We're now in 2011, 50 countries with 199,000 clients. Really rapid growth.
Clients meaning individuals, not
Yes, not families. Right. Borrowers. So this is a quick overview of the foundation. The money comes in on this side. We've got supplier partnership programs. We've got team member giving, prosperity campaign. Real important part of this is Whole Foods Market covering 100% of our operating expenses. Whole Foods uses a portion of its profits to cover our salaries, our cell phones, our travel. What does that mean for all of the other donations that come in? That's right. Yeah, 100% of those donated dollars end up in country helping alleviate poverty. Most nonprofits, because they're not linked to a for-profit entity, end up spending anywhere 25 to 35 cents out of every dollar to cover their operating expenses. Not a bad thing, it's just they don't have the benefit of being strategically associated with a for-profit entity. Okay, so I know this is hard to read, but I'll just break it down. We're audited every year. We've got a very robust tracking and reporting system. We publish all of our financials quarterly on our website. Money comes through the foundation into the hand of microfinance institutes. These are subject matter experts in the industry of microfinance. They're aligned with the Grameen Bank's methodology and philosophy of microfinance. They specialize by region. So we'll use a different one in Costa Rica than we will in Guatemala, than we will in Kenya. These folks are really essential to helping us put those dollars to work because for the most part, they're from those countries. They speak the language. They understand the politics. They understand the cultures. Most importantly, they know where the pockets of the communities of greatest need are, our borrowers over on this side. So they help us get into the country, find these pockets, and then they actually become the bankers in this association. They have face-to-face relationships with our borrowers. They manage the lending centers. They really help us leverage those dollars in a very effective way. These are some of the brands of the MFIs that we use around the world. Foncoze down in Haiti, Grameen America on our domestic projects, BRAC over in Africa, Pro Hair in Central and South America. These organizations are vital to us having been able to accomplish that timeline that we viewed just a slide ago. So I mentioned some of that methodology that Grameen Bank put into place that drives that 98% repayment rate. It's a decentralized, high-service, high-touch banking model. The bankers travel to the villages. We don't require collateral. We don't require credit history. We don't require work history. One of the things we do require is that the borrowers join a lending center and then they join a borrowers group. And these are photographs from around the world of lending centers comprising of anywhere from 2 to 3 different borrowers groups. Uganda here, their lending center is a woven mat underneath a tree. Over here in India, they've set out some chairs in the center of the village. So, in order to become a borrower, you need to join a borrowers group. Once you join a borrowers group, we take responsibility for each other's loans. Borrowers group is anywhere from 5 to 8 women. And so, if we're a borrowers group right here, and we're from the same community, same village, and we're all have our own businesses, and we're meeting every 2 weeks to pay back our loans, and suddenly I stop coming to the meetings and I stop paying back my loans. What do you think that triggers in my borrowers group?
Right.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. They know they're all in this together. And so it triggers a conversation that says, hey, let us help you. We noticed you weren't here. It looks like you're having problems. Your success is our success, so please let us help you. That's a real driver in that 98% repayment rate. the other driver in it, that as individuals, this is the first time that many of these people can imagine a better better life for their children than they had. Again, they're born into abject poverty. So they take this very, very seriously. They see this as an opportunity they don't want to miss. They work very hard to make it succeed. So between those two components, the individual striving to succeed and the group mentality of we're all in this together, drives that 98% repayment rate. Another real important part of these bi-weekly meetings, and I know it's hard to see here, but you can get the gist, there's a sharing portion that goes on every 2 weeks. Borrowers get up in front of the group and they share their stories, what's been going on, so that everyone in the lending center gets to learn through their experience. Very, very powerful in creating probably the most tactical business training that they get. It's from peer to peer. This is our team, the foundation team. And why I show this slide is for this column right here. This is our auditing and evaluations team. Brian, Steve, Evan, and Daniel. They spend 75% of their time in country monitoring and evaluating these lending centers, the MFIs. One of the probably first or second questions that we get from our customers is, how do you know the money is getting spent in the way that you think it is? Well, we know it is because we've got this team visiting each one of these balloons is a lending center. Evan covers the red balloons, Brian covers the yellow balloons, Daniel covers the blue balloons. They visit each center twice a year, once at random, once planned. In order for an MFI to do business with Whole Planet Foundation, they need to commit, and this is another one of those Grameen methodologies, they need to commit to complete transparency in their accounts. So Brian visits one of these centers, opens up their account book, looks through their accounts, and we're not talking computer spreadsheets, we're talking about ink on paper. Make sure that the money's coming in the way we expect it to, the money's going out the way we expect it to. They interview the borrowers to make sure that that relationship between the borrower and the lender is one of respect, transparency, compassion. This is what allows us to look our customers in the eyes, our vendor partners in the eye, and tell them we know exactly how this is being spent and collected because we've got the systems and the team in place that audits it to make sure that it is being spent in the way that we expect it to. Yeah?
So looking from the numbers earlier, there are about 199 clients that you guys serve. They're aggregated down to the MFIs, and then those 3 people go to each region. Is it just those 3 people individually each region, or they come with a team talking
No,
about
it's just those 3.
Okay.
It's just those 3. They spend a lot of time on the road.
So the MFIs really get all that data for you ready. That's the most of the management.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. I mean, it's that, and also the personal relationship that they develop with the borrowers. Because when we open a lending center, there's a certain degree of conversation that takes place between the borrower and the lender in terms of what's your business idea, how do you expect to pay it back, what do you think you can sell it for, how long do you think you'll take to pay it back. We let the borrower determine how long it is to pay it back. Because we want to set them up for success in as many ways as possible. We don't want somebody to start a business with kind of a vague idea of what they're going to buy it for and what they're going to sell it for. So there's a very top-line conversation at the front end that looks like, tell me about your idea, let me probe it a little bit. Okay, so they're the guys that really allow us to manage these relationships. So I've got a few of our borrowers here. These are straight out of our calendar, actually. We produce a calendar every year. But I'd like to point out that we highlight the MFI, the banker,